to find something better, but he couldn't to fit with his lineup strategy, so he ended up with Zoo as a default 5th deck. So it's interesting here that the deck that he probably feels least secure in is what he's leading out with.
Yeah, maybe just wants to try and just cash in on an early win, get it out of the way, forget about it, and then move on with the rest of the decks he's very comfortable with. But I also know that DrHippi, known by far for his Freeze Mage play, his second most played class is Rogue.
Yes.
Like, he does not mess around with Rogue either. It's, I would say it's just below his Freeze Mage play games.
Yeah, and this is a little bit of an old school list here from DrHippi. He's playing a list that was popularized by Stan Sifka and my Complexity teammate Super JJ, who kind of came up with this one Argent Squire idea in Miracle Road, because they generally just don't have anything to do on turn 1 a lot of the time. It's a spot that's been supplanted by Swashbuckler recently in a lot of decks, but DrHippi going with this old school Argent Squire, and the old school flavor is something that echoes throughout a lot of his deck lists. He's playing old school Token Druid, for example, as well, not bringing the more up-to-date Malagos version. But as I went on that extended story about DrHippi's deck lineup, you can see there is absolutely no action from Hippie's side of the board right now on turn 1, and his decision is backstab a Flame Imp, play an Argent Squire, or none of the above.
Yeah, so I was talking to DrHippi yesterday, and he told me about this strategy, and I was like, oh, so you're going to rope a bit, and he was like, no, I am going to rope every single turn, and I know it will annoy him. It's like, okay, well, interesting to see, but he does have a pretty good turn. He can choose to backstab the imp if he wants to, but it looked like he wants to hold on for that. He has multiple options next turn of just coining out SI, and so far, DrHippi's hand is looking pretty good, and, like you said, this sort of old school approach seems to be working out so far, just being able to get the Squire down early on.
Yeah, Voidwalker here, really nice response to the Argent Squire. Important pickup for like a Bawse that turn. If he'd have just had the Abusive Sergeant as his turn, it would have looked a little bit miserable. So the 1-3 to wall out the 1-1 from making any efficient trades here is definitely a really big deal. But DrHippi, for his part, has a pretty strong opening against Zoo. Honestly, he got that 1 Squire, and he also has access to the Coin SI7 agent play, which is such a huge swing early against a Zoo deck.
Yeah, and especially because we can see the follow-up as well. The natural progression of how this game may well play out is like a boss plays the Gang Boss on 3, because it's a pretty good 3-drop, and then DrHippi just has the opportunity to just sap, because he'll be ahead on board, and then just build on that, and a lot of the time, Zoo can't really come back from that if Rogue's ahead this early on.
Yeah, I mean, definitely breaking up the backstab SI7 agent combination here, and using the coin, which is a tool that can be useful as the game goes on. It's not an automatic decision, but because of that line that you just elucidated with the sap on the 3-drop, which is the primary target, right? Or quite is. Sometimes there's Sea Giants, and sometimes sapping a Doomguard is okay, but the Doomguard's just going to come straight back at you the next turn. So the 3-drops are quite often the premium sap targets in the deck.
Yeah, and it's going to be really difficult for like a Boss, and we see this rope strategy, more importantly, playing out. And I'm going to, probably more so, excuse me, than any matchup we've seen, I'm going to watch the player cams just a little bit more as well, just to see who is getting to who more, because DrHippi looks pretty chill, whereas like a Boss looks not, I was going to say more focused than normal. I don't mean that as in terms of, an insult, but more sort of relaxed than you would normally feel. Probably because he's on the, back end of a rough match so far.
And again, I'm sure DrHippi is going to consider his options here, but now is the time that he can just turn the switch on the Zoo deck and put Zoo in that position that they do not want to be in, which is having to consider defensive plays, and he can do that right now. Sap, trade the 3-3 into the 1-2, jam a Cold Blood onto his Argent Squire, and just start getting in there.
Yeah, because, Zoo doesn't really have a good way to just deal the 1 damage outside of a Peddler into a coil, so...
Right. What are they going to do? Soulfire your 1 health Argent Squire?
The health is completely insignificant, especially compared to the fact he's gaining the damage off the Cold Blood, so, not too much of a surprise to see this turn. You just fill it out as much as possible. He's probably going to have the mana to dagger up and start being able to use that to leverage the advantage as well going forward. So Like a Boss definitely not having a great time of it at the moment, and I just really love the sap on the 3-drop. It just cements the advantage Hippie's gained so far.
It does so many things for him here. Like, not only does it, start putting on the pressure to Zoo's life total, where, Zoo's life total is one of their biggest vulnerabilities. You can really pressure that heavily, but it also creates the situation where if Imgang Boss was to come down again, you just automatically have an amazing trade on the board with the 5-1 into it, so you can just maintain pressure that way. Sap number 2 being picked up is so huge here for Hippie, because now that's the one turn he needs. He can sap the 2-4, he can double trade with the dagger and the 3-2 into the Argent Squire, and then from there he's just curving into Drake perfectly.
And we can see as well from Like a Boss's hand, it's going to ruin him. Because then if he has to play Doomguard, well, that's 1 minion. He can only attack one of his opponent's minions with that. He'll still have 1 left. And then he'll discard an Argus and the Imgang Boss. Like, horrible minions to discard, because they're actually going to be MVPs in this matchup going forward.
Absolutely.
But he's also pressured enough, as he said, on the life total, that I feel like you kind of just have to Doomguard.
Yeah, the power of this new Zoo deck is that with the addition of Malkazar's Imp, being able to, draw cards for each card that you discard, you essentially cycle through your deck to the power cards more often, because Zoo is a deck where in the mid game, some of your cards are just significantly more powerful than others. Your Doomguards, your Soulfires, your Darkshire Councilmans, your Defenders of Argus, this is what you really want to pick up. What you don't want is the situation where you draw the other way around and your Doomguard just ends up discarding those power cards for you.
The old school Doomguard plays that actually just causes more trouble sometimes. But we see the Flame Imp pretty pointless as a draw for Like a Boss. He could choose to go with the Gang Boss and the Flame Imp, but 1, that's 3 more damage. So that'd be 11 guaranteed sort of damage across both turns. And also it just doesn't really gain too much. It's just too slow, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't... It puts a 3 health Taunt on the board, even if he goes with the Argus play, like Flame Imp into Argus, which doesn't do anything. The 3-1 just trades directly into it, so... Yep, the Doomguard line seems to be the only line that makes any sense, but this is just a free Azure Drake turn for Dr. Hippie here. He's just nailed down as much early game tempo as he needs, and he can just happily make this easily trade up for him on the board, 3-1 into the remainders of the Doomguard, and just continue to curve out.
Yeah, and also at this point, the outs for Like a Boss are very, very small, right? Because Dr. Hippie knows it's an Imgang Boss in hand, so he knows there's no chance of like a Soulfire into Silverware Golems or something like that, to have any chance to just battle back onto the board, and he knows that's not going to happen at this point. So, Dr. Hippie's just, as you said, just continuing to be in a great position, and he's probably, for the rest of the game, going to stay 1 minion ahead.
Yeah, this is the position you want to be in against Zoo. If you create board tension against Zoo, they can almost always break that in their favor. They're the deck that plays all the buffs, all the combat tricks, all the power pumpers that they need to just make more favorable trades than you can possibly cope with. But if you're able to get ahead of them, just have more minions on the board, that is a huge benefit. And if that number of minions is any number against 0, then they are in a mess.
Yeah, this is looking pretty horrible for Like a Boss. He's just playing whatever he can, but as I said, Hippie's just value of his hand, even though he can't guarantee to gadget Zan into prep and cycle a big turn, he doesn't even need to particularly. He could just play Tomb Pillager, clear the 2-1 and dagger up again. It's a completely valid turn, and then use the coins if the Tomb Pillager dies to then have a much better gadget Zan turn after, if he doesn't just already finish the game by then.
Yep, I mean, I definitely like dagger down the 2-1. Tomb Pillager seems like a given. The only question is where you send the Drake, and I personally would love to see this Drake going downtown. I want to put my opponent to 11 right now and just really start ramping up the pressure.
Because like Bawse is at a point where he has to tap to try and keep up in terms of the board, and if he keeps tapping and you just go aggressive, he will just die. That's normally how live tap works when you have 2 health, so I really like the pressure. And also, what are the punishes from leaving in Gambos up versus trading? Like, are there that many?
And it would have to be something plus Argus. Like, Argus would be necessary to ramp up the health, so it could pick up a value trade, and then you would need additional power on top of that. Okay. That changes many, many things.
Yeah, so Doomguard, when you have a... only 2 cards other in hand, and as one of them Silverware Golem feels pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it might not be enough. It probably won't. You know, DrHippi's got so secure with his early game here, and he has just a strong Gadgetzan turn available to him in the future, but this is the kind of draw that like Bawse needed. You know, just drawing regular vanilla zoo minions was not going to get the job done. He needed to do something above and beyond, and you know, the Silverware Golem discard synergy is pretty much the strongest thing you can do in this build of zoo.
Exactly. It was probably the only draw or combination of draws that was going to give him any chance at this point in the game. Yeah. But even with that, DrHippi still has Gadgetzan, prep, and then potentially not prep coin in that order, of course, but you know, potentially a coin to play around with as well, depending on how the turn plays out. And he's actually going to wait and just, I guess, just play the Silverware Golem out and trade into the Drake.
I won't say I'm a huge fan of this play. Whenever you're spending mana on Silverware Golem, I tend to think something has gone wrong, but I understand that the Drake is a huge threat, and just leaving that up on board, you know, because if you Doomguard, you probably want to like Doomguard into the healthy minion to leave the smaller minion available that doesn't pick up. You know, you don't want the Tomb Pillager just to get a free trade into your 3, for example. So I can understand like the threat of the Drake, leaving it around there is a big deal, but I feel like you needed that big swing turn to at least have any hope in this game.
Yeah. So do you now, as DrHippi, consider actually just Tomb Pillager into Van Cleef and continue to go? Because the prep, you know, is actually... DrHippi's gone very heavy on minions this game. He's not drawn too many spells at all, so the odds on the prep side kind of spell is pretty high. But you could just guarantee a wider board versus Zoo with only a 3/3 to, you know, like... you know, try and even threaten your board, and one of those is a Silverware Golem that you saw from hand as opposed to being pulled out. So there's one less card yet again that can create a big swing turn.
Yeah, completely agree. There's no need to do anything fancy just yet. Just keep developing the board, keep yourself ahead, and now when these Tomb Pillagers just die through natural causes, when they eventually will, you're able to start your Gadgetzan turn then. But for now, just continue dominating the board. And yeah, I think this is a wise pickup from like Bawse, just taking the Voodoo Doctor over the Malchezaar's Imp, because you know you have to actually discard cards from the Malchezaar's Imp to be able to draw more. So it actually wouldn't have done anything for him in that situation.
Yeah, I can imagine the... post-mortem of the Tomb Pillagers. Yes, he died of natural causes. Yeah. Okay, so the Doomguard does actually just clear off the Tomb Pillager there, and now Gadgetzan, 2 coins, prep. I mean, DrHippi's going to have a whale of a turn this time.
He is, and this time he is not roping. He understands he is not going to put himself in the position where he has to react late to a Gadgetzan turn.
The thing I'm getting out of this is DrHippi just lied to me. Yeah. He told me he was going to rope every turn.
Those were his words. Okay. I personally am disappointed.
As am I. I thought we'd get more time to chat. But, you know, DrHippi. He just ruined it. But we'll see this Gadgetzan turn as he goes into the Farseer and SI. Oh my god, so many options now.
I mean, he's got a board clear. Shadow Strike, SI7, dagger down the 2/1, just back in complete dominance, and that's if a more appealing option doesn't appear off the Gadgetzan cycle, which it doesn't. So I'm sure we're going to see the SI7 come down here, and again, just since, turn 3, the Rogue has been ahead on this board, and it just hasn't even looked like the Zoo.
And also as well, you know, the health advantage is big as it is, and then a Farseer comes down, so, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot being 3 health, but you know, it can make a huge difference actually, and there is going to be the first game, and DrHippi takes a very convincing win versus Like a Boss's Warlock. So struggled with that one overall, but we'll be back shortly with the next game of this series. So stick around, guys.